Greetings, curious acolytes of the Force, and welcome back to our expansive archives. As the primary weapon of the Jedi Knight, lightsabers are a warning to all evildoers and a symbol of Jedi authority. Their brightly colored blades often indicated the occupation or perspective that a Jedi held. Of all of their lightsaber colors though, blue and green are the most common and prevalent among the Order, and have been for centuries, with blue being the most common color of them all. We know that blue is to symbolize the Jedi Guardians, and green is to represent the Consulars, but that wasn't always true. There are many exceptions to this idea which have been repeatedly proven, but for this holocron, we wanted to figure out exactly why blue and green became the most common colors during the era of the Clone War, and what happened to the diverse colors that eventually seemingly went extinct. Why were blue and green so prominent to the point that they were almost the only colors we ever see the Jedi Order wield? We know that back in the day there were many colors of lightsabers which included various shades of blue and green. In this analysis, we will be looking at both legends and canon explanations, as there are two very different reasons as to why this is in both continuities. So now my friends, come along with us today as we go spelunking into the icy caves of Ilum in order to discover the truth about the color of kyber crystals. We'll first start with the Legends explanation. Prior to the Battle of Ruusan, there were a great multitude of lightsaber colors. This was due to the fact because the Jedi of this era were encouraged to go out and seek their own lightsaber crystals, so there were various sources from which they could draw a lightsaber crystal from, rather than just one location and one kind of crystal. Now we know that there are some crystals which have a set color about them, and other kyber crystals which are as transparent like glass, but will begin to change color depending on the alignment or perspective of the wielder imbuing upon it. The crystals that do this are connected with the Force and are usually called Adegan crystals, or at least a breed of Adegan crystals. The Adegan crystals in Legends continuity were extremely rare, so whenever Jedi found a lightsaber crystal, it usually had a set color to it, with this being the Legends explanation. After the battle in the Ruusan reformation, a planet would be discovered in the unknown regions though. Jedi Master Gree would discover the planet known as Ilum, which was not only strong with the Force, but incredibly rich with kyber crystals. Kyber crystals that lined its seemingly endless caverns. Since this was an easy source of kyber crystals, the Jedi stayed claim to the planet, and made it something of a tradition to bring Padawans to the planet in order to find their own kyber crystal. However, in the Ilum caves, not all crystals were connected to the Force. There were some kyber crystals, but only the Adegan and Adegan adjacent crystals had a connection to the Force, and these crystals were extremely rare. These other focusing kyber crystals carried the power needed for a lightsaber, but simply weren't living in the Force itself, so they had a set color of either blue or green and could not be imbued upon. These Ilum crystals weren't as strong, but they were common and easily accessible to the Jedi, so the Jedi made do with what they had, choosing not to look for a gift horse in the mouth. With that said, it isn't unheard of for a Jedi Padawan to discover a purple or a yellow crystal in the caves of Ilum. However, this was exceedingly rare, even more so than finding an Adegan crystal, so it was for this reason that almost all the Jedi post-Ruusan reformation had either blue or green lightsaber blades. Typically, if they had a different colored blade in it, it was because they found it in their travels, or had it gifted to them in some way or another, such as in the instance of how Mace Windu was gifted his amethyst lightsaber crystal in Legends continuity from the native people of the Hurricane system. But again, this is the Legends explanation. In canon, the reason is much different, and perhaps more intriguing in fact. In canon, all kyber crystals are connected to the Force, similar to the Adegan crystal, and will change color depending on the perspective that their user has on the Force itself. Their very views on the Force will reflect back within the crystal. We know that there existed a great multitude of lightsaber crystals during the time of the High Republic era, even more so than in the time of the Old Republic. Thanks to recent novels, we know that the High Republic Jedi differed greatly from the Jedi of the Old Republic, and even of the future, in the way that they carried themselves and even operated. There was so much more freedom in the pursuit of the Force during this era, as it has always been 700 years since the defeat of the Sith Empire. This led to more of an exploration of the Force than in the days of past, and this reflected in their lightsaber colors, as many Jedi of this time had a wide array of differing views on the Force and different perspectives and takes on it. Their lightsaber colors was ranging anywhere from teal to cayenne to mint green to gold, orange, and even pink. We can look at Master Avar Kriss for an example on how the Jedi were encouraged to pursue their own understanding of the Force rather than the doctrine and dogma of a wider order. The Jedi Master described the Force as feeling like music. The faintest twinge of the Force in one area was like a flute to her, whereas the power of many Jedi all around her is like a symphony orchestra. Because of this, she wielded a golden yellow lightsaber, a beautiful blade. But as you can probably gather, once the High Republic era came to a close, and the Republic class era began somewhere around the 100 BBY mark, the Jedi really tightened their reins on how the Force was being taught, and how the Jedi as a whole should view it. With the teachings and the dogma of the Jedi growing at a rapid pace, it began to suffocate all the creativity that the High Republic Jedi had. And as a result of this, the various colors of the lightsaber was also choked out, and the kyber crystal only began to manifest themselves as either blue or green. This was due to the fact that all of these Jedi were taught the same opinion on the Force, the opinion that resulted in these two colors. But it doesn't end there, as this dogma was also impeding the Jedi's ability to properly do their job, and was in fact putting them in places where they never should have been in the first place. The Jedi became more political. The Jedi of the Republic class era allowed the current political climate to influence how they conducted the entire Jedi Order, something that should have never been done. Soon, by the time of the Clone Wars, many Jedi had become incredibly pharisaical, valuing the ritualistic practice of their teachings far higher than the actual meaning behind them. The idea of what a Jedi should or shouldn't be started to be called into question, which is also why we saw Jedi en masse leave the Order during this era as well. The Clone Wars honestly couldn't have come at a worse time for them. The Order wasn't nearly as unified as they once had been, and now it was time to send out knights and Padawans in droves towards the front lines and dispatched all over the galaxy with a very outdated and narrow perspective on the Force, which ultimately would harm them in the end, but was in fact reflected in the color of their blades. For a Jedi, there were many scenarios where the out-of-the-box thinking was required, but wasn't available because the Jedi only knew how to operate the Force in one way and through one lens. This, I think, is one of the reasons why the Clone Wars went the way it did. Back in the day, Jedi used to experiment with the Force and learn new things about it by tinkering with it and finding other avenues to solve problems. But in this day and age, the Council deemed experimentation as dangerous and pretty much kept all exploring in the Force to a minimum, all based around the feeling that the Jedi have tried to fight against so deeply. That feeling is fear. What this means is that the blue and green lightsaber blades are more important than simply being the common colors of the Jedi, but in some cases, it could even represent the failings of the Jedi of this era. But that is of course the canon continuity. What we want to know is, which explanation do you prefer? Do you accept that it was just a fact that most Ilum kyber crystals were either blue or green? Or do you accept that it was the dogmatic views of the Jedi that caused this common coloration? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. And as always, my friends and fellow acolytes, thank you for visiting our archives. We hope to see you back here soon, and may the Force be with you.